October 2019. Daryl Morey, general manager of the Houston Rockets, posted 7 words about Hong Kong and deleted them inside the hour. It did not matter. By then, it had already cost the NBA several $100 million. Chinese state television pulled the games, Tencent stopped streaming the Rockets, the sponsors walked, and against a streaming contract worth $1.5 billion, that is $20 to $60 million a word. And Morey paid none of it. Beijing had also asked the NBA to fire him, and Adam Silver said publicly, no chance. 13 months later, he became the Philadelphia 76ers president of basketball operations and held the title for the next 6 years. So this is not a league that punishes speech. It decides who gets sent the bill. Call it the Counterparty Rule. Now watch what the same league does when the person talking is the one dribbling the ball. Craig Hodges, 2 championships with the Chicago Bulls, 3 straight three-point contest titles, on a salary that season reported at around $700,000. In 1991, the champion Bulls went to the White House, and Hodges arrived in a dashiki, handing over an 8-page letter addressed to President George H.W. Bush on discrimination, on poverty, on what the administration owed black communities. He won another three-point contest after that, while his minutes went the other way. By his own description, from roughly the 8th man on the roster to the last man on it. The Bulls released him at 32, a 2-time champion, a specialist, at the one skill that ages best, and not one team in the league signed him or offered him a tryout ever again. His own accounting is a single sentence. That jump shot at the White House cost me $50 million. Set against the $700,000 he was actually earning, he is claiming the letter cost him roughly 70 years of his own salary. In 1996, he sued for $40 million, alleging the franchises had conspired to blackball him. And the case never reached the merits, because a judge threw it out on a 2-year statute of limitations, ruling he had waited too long to file. Never tested, never proven, never disproven. Simply, too late to ask. 4 years after Hodges' letter, a guard in Denver stopped standing up. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, on a $2.6 million salary and playing the best basketball of his life, leading the Nuggets in scoring at 19.2 a game and in assists at 6.8. He stopped standing for the anthem, quietly, for weeks before anyone noticed. And when they did, he did not soften it. He was a Muslim first and a Muslim last. His duty was to his creator, and the flag, in his reading, was a symbol of oppression and tyranny. On the 12th of March, 1996, Commissioner David Stern suspended him, and the fine was $31,707. Now here's the number everybody gets wrong. He missed exactly 1 game, because inside 72 hours, a compromise arrived. He would stand and pray, head bowed, and the suspension lifted. $31,000. And that is the entire official penalty the NBA ever assessed him. Then, the unofficial one. That June, Denver traded him to Sacramento. His minutes fell, his starting job went, and when the contract expired in '98, he could not get a tryout anywhere in the league at 29 years old. His career earnings stopped at $19,849,500, and years later, he priced it himself. I lost millions because I couldn't keep my mouth shut. 25 years later, a center in Boston pointed at something with an actual bank account. Enes Kanter, 11 NBA seasons, 5 contracts totaling $101,780,000, and a 1-year Boston deal, signed that August at $2.6 million. He started wearing shoes reading Free Tibet. He called Xi Jinping a brutal dictator, and he kept going. The Uyghurs, Nike, the executives who would rather not be asked. Tencent stopped streaming Celtics games in China. Look at what Kanter did there. In the only terms this league actually uses. He did not name an idea. He named the government sitting behind $300 million a season of streaming rights, the exact counterparty that cost the NBA several hundred million, the last time somebody said its name out loud. On the 10th of February, 2022, Boston traded him to Houston for Daniel Theis, and Houston waived him days later. He has not played an NBA game since, and before a congressional commission in July of 2023, he gave his figure, around $50 million in contracts and endorsements, that he believes he would otherwise have signed. And in all fairness, a 30-year-old backup center with defensive limitations gets waived in this league every February for no political reason at all. Kanter cannot prove otherwise, and neither can anyone else. But notice which men keep having to prove it. Because when an executive named that same counterparty, the league wrote the check itself. Which brings us to the most expensive case in the story, and the only one where every single figure is public. Kyrie Irving's salary for the 2021-22 season was $34,916,200. New York City required proof of vaccination to work indoors, and Kyrie declined it. Then, Brooklyn went further than the city ever did, announcing he would not play and would not practice until he was a full participant. The city never said he couldn't get on a plane. His employer said it. Then, the formula. Under the deal, the league and the union struck that October, a player missing games to a local mandate forfeits 191.6 of his salary per game. So divide $34.9 million by 91.6, and every absence costs $381,181. Automatic, no hearing, no appeal. He played 29 games, and the forfeited checks came to roughly $15.5 million, subtracted $381,000 at a time, on a schedule like rent running backwards. And that is the small number. A 4-year extension worth $187 million stalled and was never signed. While that same August, on that same roster, Kevin Durant signed 198. Instead of an extension, Kyrie took a $36.5 million player option and was traded to Dallas the following February. Then, the endorsements. And this needs saying carefully, because it is a different controversy entirely. In December of 2022, over a social media post about an anti-Semitic film, nothing to do with the vaccine, Nike terminated a signature deal worth a reported $11 million a year. 2 incidents, 2 counterparties, 1 identical mechanism. A company with money in the deal protecting itself. And here is what complicates every easy version of this story. Kyrie is fine. He has since signed for $126 million with Dallas, then $118.5 more, and his career earnings now sit at $347 million, a third of $1 billion, banked. He came out rich, and the invoice still got paid in full. Always 2 different questions. Then, this week, the thing that has never happened to anyone else here. Anthony Fauci declined to answer more than 100 questions before a Senate committee, citing the 5th, a constitutional right, not a confession, and it establishes nothing about what caused the pandemic. But 2 days later, Stephen A. Smith, who had called Kyrie flat out stupid on camera, went on his own show and said this: Kyrie Irving did nobody wrong. We did him wrong. I did him wrong. And for that, I'm sincerely sorry. 35 years, 4 careers, 1 apology. So stack the ledger. Morey, several hundred million in damage, nothing personally. Promoted 13 months later. Hodges, $700,000 a year. Released at 32, 50 million claimed, nothing recovered. Abdul-Rauf, $31,700 in penalty, finished at 29. Kanter, $101 million banked, 50 million claimed, waived off a $2.6 million deal. Kyrie, $15.5 million forfeited, $187 million never signed. 5 men, 1 institution, and a bill that lands somewhere different every single time. Now look at what each of them pointed at, because nobody sends an invoice on behalf of an idea. Hodges named a sitting president. Abdul-Rauf named the flag on the broadcast. Kanter named the government behind $300 million a season, and Kyrie named his own employer. None of them was punished for a belief. Each was punished for naming a counterparty, somebody with money in the deal and a phone number. And the one man who did exactly that and kept everything was the one the league needed most. That is the Counterparty Rule. The NBA sells player voice at a price it sets, and the bill goes to whoever is cheapest to send it to, which leaves the question sitting underneath $76 billion of media rights. If a league is only comfortable with the speech that costs it nothing, was it ever really the league that let them talk? Because the players are only half of this. The other half is a broadcast market big enough to move a commissioner, and it has spent 20 years, quietly, rewriting what American sport is allowed to say. Ask the one man who said its name out loud and never paid a cent.